never normal to leak pee for any reason, laughing, coughing, sneezing, jumping, or the I gotta go and I didn't make it. That is never normal. It happens a lot, but it doesn't have to be your forever normal. It is not normal to pee more than 10 times a day. And this one is really hard for women to believe. I promise.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, Master Captain Angie Scott.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. I'm super excited because if you're listening to this episode on the day it was released, I'm up in Boise, Idaho at the Outdoor Media Summit, and today is the day I get to stand up and accept the award for Best Outdoor Podcast. I wish y'all could be there with me because it is 100% thanks to you, the listeners. That was a fan-voted poll, and so I thank you all so much for taking the time to vote, and I wish y'all could be there with me, absolutely 100%. I plan to do an update on next week's episode so I can tell you all about it. And just check in on my social media, at the Woman Angler, and I should be sharing some photos and updates throughout the week. Also, like the whirlwind that life is sometimes, soon as I get back from the summit tomorrow, we'll be turning right around and hitting the road for the final tournament of the year, which is the big one, the championship, the LBA Classic on Bull Shoals Lake. So much exciting stuff happening right now, and thanks so much for being along for the ride. So I have a fun episode in store for you this week that I'm sure will be extremely helpful for most, if not all of you ladies who listen to the show. And be sure and stay tuned until the very end because I have a super special offer for you that's not only going to save you money, but it's also going to help support the podcast and keep the show going at the same time. All right, without further ado, let's jump right in. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. I always enjoy when we really get to focus on topics that directly relate to women, and especially, obviously, women in the outdoors. And we definitely have one of those topics today. So I'd like to welcome my very special guest from Tighten Your Tinkler, Christina Walsh. Christina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Angie. And I love the way you just said that because it is all about our whole passion, my partner and I, is just supporting women and staying active and living the life that they want without being hindered by the personal issues we often keep to ourselves for way too long.
Yes. So, as women in the outdoors, peeing is always an issue regardless of what activity you're doing outside. So we're going to get into some specifics there. But before we do, I just want to give you the opportunity to just give us a little background on you and your partner and how you started this whole Tighten Your Tinkler idea.
Well, girl, like many things that are passion driven in this life, this is not how I pictured this. I am a physical therapist, and I thought I'd have just kind of a normal PT career, and life took me on a very different path. And, Jen is an exercise physiologist, my partner, and together we are Tighten Your Tinkler. She didn't dream of this either. We were brought together like so organically and have so much clarity that it was meant to be at this point. But, we ended up working together, taking care of women under the same roof, her as a personal trainer and me doing specialty body work as a physical therapist. But she was recovering from traumatic birth injuries. And then I had my first child. And even though I had a midwife and a doula and a smooth birth, I ended up with still pelvic floor issues because of pushing for a really long time. And we were like uniquely positioned to find a better way than what else was out there to deal with this stuff. Jen was being referred for major pelvic reconstructive surgery at 36 and was like, absolutely not. I'm going to find a better way. And sure enough, we discovered a whole new approach that is completely non-invasive, doesn't involve awkward squeezing like Kegels, which don't work anyway. It's non-surgical. It has no side effects but positive ones. It's a holistic approach that we really were seeking out for ourselves first. Yeah. And then when it changed our lives, we're like, oh, we're going to start using this with all of our clients. Their lives started changing. And then we were like, you know what? We're going to change the world. We're going to do some research because that's really the way to get this out there. And our crazy behinds took on a 3-year university research study to prove that what we had found actually works, because we're like, okay, testimonials aren't going to change the world. Like, they're important, but we need data. And I don't know if we would do it again if we knew what we were signing up for, but I'm so glad we did, because it's that allows us to confidently say to the women who come work with us, this is what we can promise you. So it is more than just the testimonials that stand behind what we have to put out there in the world. And the crazy thing is, we had no intention of making this an online business. We were just going to make our big splash with this research and move on. But the women in our study kept coming back asking for videos. And we were like, okay, we need to listen to this. We can't wait for the slow cogwheel of the medical system to pick this up. We've got to get out there ourselves, because there are millions of women who need this support and they need it now. So we're going to do this. And that's what we did. We hired a professional video team, really dialed in the protocol, and have been, trying to connect with the women we can best serve ever since.
That's awesome. It reminds me of stories that I've had of other women who became entrepreneurs on the show because, they maybe went into it not expecting the outcome. Like you said, you might not, had you known like what was involved with all the research, maybe given it a second thought. But the fact is that as women, those resources just aren't out there, and so somebody has to do it.
We have to create it for ourselves and blaze that path. And yes, even though this is what we pictured, we are so grateful, because the way we get to serve and connect with women on an issue that is so intimate and personal, but that will change your life when it improves, is like the greatest gift we could ask for.
Yeah. So, first of all, before we really start getting into it, you mentioned Kegels, and I actually had to look up what those were because I didn't know. But when I started reading about it, I was like, oh yeah, I had a flashback from years ago. Somebody was telling me about that, and I don't know why we were all interested in it at that time, but explain to listeners what those are if they don't know.
Sure. It's what's often prescribed and recommended to women when they come in with bladder issues or any sort of pelvic floor problems. And it's just squeezing and relaxing the muscles that basically hold in your pee. Like if you have to pee really bad and you're like trying not to, that muscle, squeezing that muscle consciously is a Kegel. And the only reason I believe that, I think all of our healthcare providers are well-intentioned. They all got into their practices because they want to help people. But I believe that those things are still being recommended, and pills and all that, because most don't know there's a better way yet. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we were like, we have to get this out there, because it's a completely different approach that involves whole body movement. And, when you think about it, a Kegel doesn't really make sense. Like, do we train any other muscle in our body without movement? That would be like if you went to your personal trainer and you're like, I've got to lift these heavy boxes from the floor to the shelf again and again all day long. I need to build some strength for that. And the trainer was like, all right, cool, I got you. Girl, we're going to just hold your elbow at 90 degrees at your side and just squeeze and relax that muscle. Yeah. I'm like, would that work? Like, it would build strength only in that position, and it would not help you to lift the box from the floor to the high shelf. And like, we don't need our pelvic floor to work like that for us. It didn't need to be thought about before it was injured. And so we needed to find a way that would strengthen it to work without thinking about it again. Cause like, I need my pelvic floor to work for me when I'm in a deep squat, picking up the laundry basket, or, it needs to be versatilely functional. And there is a way to kind of turn on that function again, which is what we discovered in our personal journey.
Awesome. So the first question that came to my mind when I started thinking about this topic, and I'm sure it's a question you get asked all the time, but what is normal? Like, how often should we be going to the bath, urinating?
Totally. Oh, girl. And these numbers and these things are shocking because these issues are so widespread that they've become accepted. And there's like jokes about them in circles of women. Like, it's never normal to leak pee for any reason, laughing, coughing, sneezing, jumping, or the like, I got to go and I didn't make it. Mm-hmm. That is never normal. It happens a lot, but it doesn't have to be your forever normal. It is not normal to pee more than 10 times a day. And this one is really hard for women to believe. I promise, no matter how much water you're drinking, there's no such thing as a small bladder. They come in standard sizes. Your bladder holds 1.5 to 2 cups of pee and up to 4 at night. So if you're drinking a boatload of water, you still should not be peeing more than 10 times a day. And if you are, it's a sign that something's not working well there and could be fixed, could get better. It's also not normal to get up at night to pee. This is another one that's like so deeply accepted. Very few women have come to us wanting to fix this problem primarily, but it's the first thing. They come back 2 weeks later and say, holy moly, I can't believe this. I am actually sleeping through the night again. And so none of that's normal. The feeling of pressure and heaviness down there, many women report, or the feeling of like a bulge, like something's trying to escape, that is not normal. It's not normal to have pain with intimacy and tampon use. That's not normal. And that chronic back and hip tightness is all part of it because core and pelvic floor is one big unit that needs to work together. So living with all that stuff doesn't have to be your forever situation.
Yeah. Wow. So I'm going to tie in, as this relates directly to what I do as a tournament angler. We go out there, we get to the ramp at 5 a.m, sometimes earlier. We start getting the boat ready. Sometimes there's somewhere to go to the bathroom at the ramp. Sometimes there's not. And so you need to make sure that you've did what you need to do before you get in the truck and drive to the ramp, which, could prolong even longer. Then you get out on the boat, and even if you're paired up with another lady, or you could be with a guy, depending on what type of tournament you're fishing, still, sometimes you don't even want to have to take the time to have to go to the bathroom because you're in a tournament situation. You're trying to focus all your time on doing the best you can in the tournament. However, it's not healthy to hold it for 8-9 hours, right? I mean,
yes. Well, and that is an extreme situation. I mean,
right.
Certainly it is normal to need to go within an 8 to 9 hour.
Right. And if you're staying,
but more than 10 times a day is past the threshold of
right,
normal.
Gotcha. So there's a balance there that we're trying to find. And
yes.
And talk about, in our prior talk to leading up to this interview, we were talking about, 4 tips to help women pee less and stay outside longer. And one of the things is how to hydrate properly. So in a tournament situation, it can be, a long day, really hot, and you want to stay hydrated. But at the same time, there's a balance there. You may have to go to the bathroom a few times while you're out there, but you don't want to have to go every 5 minutes. So what you guys teach is just exercises and different things that can help with that, right?
Totally. But also, like, there are so many action steps you can start taking today, right now, that will help move that needle in a positive direction where that's concerned. And so I've got several tips. Awesome. One of them, as far as proper hydration. So first of all, it's very tempting. I know when you're going to know you don't want to need a potty in the next, you can tell I have little kids, it's the potty. For the next few hours, it's tempting to dehydrate yourself, thinking that's going to help. But what is actually true is that dehydrated pee is actually a bladder irritant. So you're really not stacking up any wins. And as we all know, the dangers of dehydration in general are no good. Right. So you do want to still drink water. But one thing that will help your body to make better use of the water that you're already putting in and actually absorb it better instead of letting it just run right through you is to use some electrolyte drops. And those little packets, you see them all over, advertised all over social media, are great. Jen and I use highlight electrolyte drops, which you can get on Amazon. So that's a wonderful little hack to just help your body use the water better instead of letting it just run right through. Another huge tip is to make sure use a toileting stool. This actually, it's well known, like a squatty potty. It's well known that helps you pass your bowels better, but it actually helps you fully empty your bladder as well. And if you're on the go and you need a solution to help you with that, take a couple of big old yogurt containers and turn them upside down. Stash them in your bag, or soup containers. You can get yourself in that like deep squat ergonomic emptying position without the big squatty potty. And the other thing is, make sure you're not pushing your pee out. This is one that so many women, it's like in order to shave off a few seconds, like whether you're a teacher or a therapist or a healthcare worker, you barely have any time to go. And so you're thinking, oh, I'll just push it all out and that'll help. It actually causes more pee to be left in your bladder. So you're going to have to be going again sooner thereafter, and it increases your chances of urinary tract infections or UTIs to do that, because it causes retention. So really do make sure when you are going, if at all possible, really make that a passive affair. Let the muscles relax, and that will help fully empty your bladder as well. So just those simple changes will start to make a difference.
Wow. Very, very good information. That part I did not know. That's probably part of my problem. You did mention offline that, I've gone 20 some years without having any kind of bladder infection or UTI. And for whatever reason, this summer, actually started around ICAST, which is the big fishing convention in Orlando, is when I first started having symptoms. And, I'm like, seems like I might have something going on. So I actually did like a telehealth thing, and he prescribed me some antibiotics that seemed to help. But then maybe a week later, I started having symptoms again. So I had to actually go into a walk-in clinic, get on antibiotics again, have a culture done, the whole deal. And so those are some good tips for me to think about to try to get this.
Yes, and look, and there's more even specific to that, and this is a problem that so many women deal with. And thank you for courageously sharing that, because chronic and recurrent UTIs are a big issue for many women, and it's like so many of the things we help women with. It's like, who do you even talk to about this, and like, how do you bring this up? It's so intimate. But there's a couple additional tips specific to that. When you do go, if you're in a position or a place where this is feasible, have a little peri-wash bottle or a little squirt bottle on your sink, fill it with warm water and Epsom salt, and irrigate down there after you pee. Just a little warm water and Epsom salt rinse to help clear any maybe bacteria that is trying to hang out and make its home there. That can be really protective against UTIs, in addition to those other tips that we already talked about, to help kind of completely empty. So that little Epsom salt, squirt bottle rinse after you pee each time can be really helpful. And if that either doesn't work or you don't like that, an alternative is just to get in a little sitz bath with warm water and Epsom salt. Fill the bathtub with a couple inches of water and just sit and soak. And that will just do wonders to help clean and clear the area and make sure that you are at less risk for getting those UTIs.
Gotcha. Great information. I will definitely go get me one of them little squirt bottles.
Yeah, and all those other tips really do help too, because it can be about incomplete bladder emptying. And another thing that can be involved there, and Jen and I always take a very holistic perspective on all this, because that's how we like to take care of ourselves. Another aspect of this can be pelvic floor muscles, the muscles that hold everything in down there, that have actually gotten too tight for any number of reasons. Now, a tight muscle is still a weak muscle, so that doesn't mean it's over strong. But for the women dealing with an over tight pelvic floor, and that can be from bracing or trying to do too many kegels, or just from a period of high stress where you don't even realize you're clenching your muscles trying to protect yourself. One really helpful thing to add to help decrease that over tightness, which can cause like urinary retention and incomplete emptying of the bladder, is just to focus on a breath work practice every day. And I'll give you a link to, we have a free technique that you can do in your own home. It's just a position you get in that not only opens and decompresses your back, your hips, and your pelvis and pelvic floor, it also helps bring your nervous system out of fight or flight. So if you're dealing with that over tight pelvic floor, just laying in this position 10 minutes a day is going to start to move the needle for you and just make you feel better in your body overall and set it up to be in a state to be ready for healing.
I want to pause for a moment and give a quick shout out to my friends over at Stealth Rod Holders. They first caught my attention at ICAST a few years ago when they were showcasing their well-designed and strong quick-release rod holders made of glass-reinforced nylon. Their patented technology grips the rod handle, so no more fumbling with locking collars. This allows you to get that quick hook set and land your personal best. And if you buy the best rods like I do, I mean, St. Croix rods are the best rods on earth, you want to protect it with the best rod holder, which is hands down Stealth. And Stealth rod holders come with a lifetime warranty. Check them out at stealthrodholders.com. That's probably part of my problem too, because when I'm stressed, just all my muscles tense up. So yeah.
And you're not alone. So right. So I will make sure to send all those resources over, because truly these simple holistic steps make a difference, and it starts the healing process, and it sets you up for an upward spiral, not a downward one.
Awesome. So what you offer, you have a website, tightenyourtinkler.com.
Absolutely. It's about to get an overhaul.
Okay.
So
well, it looks great. It looks great as it
Thank
is.
you.
But you have a program, a 30-day program, right?
Yes. And for many, depending on the level of the condition that you're dealing with, how bad things have gotten, some women find that they love doing the simple movement series that you learn in our signature program for a much longer term. Some women need to do it longer if they have had severe birth injuries or tissue trauma. Another thing that sets women up to potentially have to deal with some of this stuff, this stuff can happen whether or not you've had children. This is an important thing to talk about, because it's so often associated with having had children, these pelvic floor issues, but so many factors affect this muscle group long before we even get to childbearing age. And that includes, if you have a history of chronic asthma or coughing, it's this constant downward pressure. Just imagine when you cough, you can feel the pressure go down. And if you spent a lifetime of that, or chronic constipation, if you've battled digestive issues, that downward straining and pressure affects those muscles. Also, chronic stress and anxiety, like we already talked about, because your bladder is connected to your fight or flight system. So all of this stuff is wrapped up into setting, all of our bodies tell their own story, right? And all of these little factors come into play. So it doesn't have to be through pregnancy or childbirth that we end up needing some support for some of these issues. Other things that can affect this is if you have a history of sexual trauma, certainly that affects that area, because that happens there too. And even playing certain sports, if they have repetitive bouncing, or, all of that is part of the story of your body, and therefore your pelvic floor.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned, it's part of your flight or fight response. I never really put that together. You see movies where somebody gets really scared and they pee their pants or something like that.
There you go. There's the most practical example to illustrate that. I love it.
I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it is tied into that.
Totally.
Well, awesome. So you have a 5-minute quiz people can go online and take. And
oh, I'm so glad you thought to bring that up, because that's where we send people first, right? It's like so many women listen and they're hearing, everybody's story is certainly unique to them, but a lot of women are dealing with some amount of this stuff. And so you might be hearing this going like, wait, I have this thing, but I don't have that other thing she's talking about. I'm not sure what to do next, or if this is really all connected, or what to do about this. And that is where you can take that 5-minute quiz. It's on our website. It's in our Instagram bio. And I'll send you the link there as well. And what women have shared with us, we took our research questionnaires that we used to track the progress of our research study participants and just made them into an online quiz. But what it does in a quick 5 minutes is it just helps you have a clearer picture, really understand how so many issues you may be feeling in your body are actually all connected, and they share a root cause. And, it's so easy to splice them into separate buckets, but they're not. And so once you realize that, you're like, oh, wait, I can fix all this at one time? Like, hallelujah.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes sense. And, I just heard it said, I've heard it said before, but I heard it the other day, health is wealth. And
oh my gosh, yes, because we want to be back outside with our family and our friends.
Yes.
And that's how you get back out there. If these issues are, so many women who are dealing with these issues, it's so emotional because it makes you feel what we hear all the time is it feels like my body is broken. Why is this happening to me? I don't understand. And because you've been robbed of your freedom to go and do and live the life you've dreamed because of these bathroom issues. Right. And they're hard to talk about. They're often things we keep very close to the chest and bear with a lot of shame. But it doesn't have to be that way. Freedom from this stuff is possible. And that's really what I want all women to hear is that long hike, not being the one to get out of the tent in the middle of the night in bear country, all these things are possible for you.
Nice. Well, awesome. I think you've really opened up the minds of a lot of listeners that maybe hadn't really given much thought to how they can improve their peeing situations when it comes to the outdoors. And you've given us a lot of tips. And so I'm going to put a link to the website and the survey so people can get a look at where they're at, and also to your Instagram so they can follow you on Instagram and, hopefully take some action to improve their just overall outdoor experience by
absolutely improving. And look, Jen and I are the ones behind the scenes of this business, so this stuff is personal, but we've lived it too. So no matter what message you want to ask us, it will be us reading and responding on Instagram or in our email, and we truly know what it feels like. So there's no such thing as TMI. That's what we're here for.
Awesome. Well, great stuff. I'm excited to share this episode with all the listeners because I know it's going to help somebody out there for sure. I know.
Thank you so much, Angie.
My pleasure. Thank you. All right. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. I hope you found the information that Christina shared as valuable as I have. Christina was generous enough to offer a special coupon code for listeners of the Woman Angler and Adventure podcast. If you're interested in getting lifetime access to this amazing program and solving your pelvic floor issues for good, use coupon code Angie23 to save $50. That's right, $50. This will no doubt profoundly change your life if you're experiencing any issues like having to get up and pee in the middle of the night, or even just having to pee more than 10 times a day, regardless of how much you're staying hydrated, or if you have even more serious issues going on. So thank you, Christina, for your generosity. And thanks again for listening, everyone. I'm going to put links to all of that, as I mentioned, in the show notes, as well as the coupon code Angie23, just in case you forget. All right, let's all go stay outdoors longer and enjoy them more. We'll see you next week.